Hello, Groove. Mike Filsaime here. Welcome to the GrooveDigital Presents podcast. Here, as always, on my left, Matt Serralta, my partner and co-founder of Groove, as well on my far right, John Cornetta. And today's special guest is the legendary one and only Rich Schefren. And Rich was actually my business coach. I believe it was 2005 and 2006 and so on and so on. So today we're going to be talking about scaling a company. So one of the things, Rich is coming out with something very, very soon. It's top secret right now, but it's going to be on scaling, and we're going to go into a couple of the things today. But what we were talking about, Rich. Well, first let's for people that don't know you, give them a little background about you.
Yeah. So I guess without going into my whole life story, because that could consume the whole podcast. I did some things offline. I was in the clothing business, the music business, and the hypnosis business. Did well in those businesses. Got online, struggled, and I struggled because I kind of thought the online business was different than every other kind of business. And when I realized after 2 years of struggling that no, online businesses are run the same way you would run an offline business. Obviously, some of the elements are different, but the way you run it is the same. Everything started to change for me. And so as things started to change for me, the people I knew asked for help. I helped them. I kind of liked helping them. And so then I wanted to try coaching. And I guess the rest is history from there. I coached a group of people. You were one of the first.
Well, you're going to be modest, but you're known as the guru to the gurus.
Right.
And so as well as me, you've had some of the, what we would call, the original, like Babe Ruth and the Yankees of Lou Gehrig and Mickey Mantle go through your coaching program.
Yeah, in internet marketing, and then also in a lot of niches that people don't know. I've coached a lot of gurus in, but I guess I'm best known for the gurus that I coach in internet marketing. Everyone from you to Ryan Dice to Russell Brunson to Todd Brown, Jeff Walker, like all those types of people.
Yeah, and when I first started with you, Rich, I was a closet warrior at that time. I was
working from home,
one man show, working from home, and one of the first calls that we had, was like, you need to run this like a business, and I pushed back a little bit from the beginning. I was like, I don't want. I just left the car business. The thought of an office and employees was really like scary to me. I really like this idea of working upstairs in my bedroom. And then you had that very famous mind map, probably.
Right, U diagram.
The U diagram. And that's what I really resonated with when I saw you speaking at Stephen Pierce's event. There was like a diagram and it said you, and then it had like a spoke of like every single department and then like all these different things. And it just literally scared the hell out of you. Like every single thing on that diagram needs to get done. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to be fun. And I was doing many of those things and realizing I'm not going to be able to continue to grow. So from there, I ended up getting an office, hiring some people, and as they say there, the rest is history.
Yeah.
And I think that was the big thing that I got from you. What do you think? What do you think the other people that went through your program? What were some of the most important takeaways that they had and problems that they were having that you noticed was a common theme?
Well, it's interesting because I would say that some of it is, well, let me take a step back for a second. What I would say is that the first thing, and I talk about this quite a bit these days because so many of the things that I've taught people, I feel have kind of, they're out there now, right? I back in 2004 when I was introducing like process mapping, people hadn't seen that before, right?
Yeah, nobody knew what a process map was,
right? Or blue ocean strategy or these kinds of things. So all those things have kind of gone out into the world. So, but there's this one area. Theory of constraints is another one, right? But there's this one area that I don't think very many entrepreneurs do. I think both of you guys do. I get this. I don't know John as well as I know you, Mike, but I get the sense that John's probably even better at this than you are, or maybe even than I am, although I'm pretty good at it. And that is that most entrepreneurs make the mistake of building a business like for some mythical entrepreneur that they hope to be one day, as opposed to recognizing who they really are and making the business work based on who they are, right? Not who they would like to be. So, that.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. John knows who he is already.
Yeah, and he knows, like very clear, right? If this is going to work for me or this is not going to work for me.
100%.
And, it's like, I'm not, like two examples I often give people is like, one, I'm not money motivated, but a business has to be money motivated or it's going to be out of business. And so recognizing that, like I have to design my business in a way where the person in charge is not money motivated, but yet the business still is money motivated. And I did that by doing like very aggressive profit sharing, paid the month after, like, you know, it was paid monthly. And my team got the financials every week. And they were strategizing, like, how are they going to maximize sales this month so that they get a big bonus next month, right? And so every Friday, I didn't even go to those meetings, but they were like, you know, if there was a big JV coming up, like, can we do a bonus package? Like, they're busy figuring it all out. And so that worked really well. And then the other thing is that I procrastinate, and then I'm a perfectionist. And partly the reason I procrastinate is because I'm a perfectionist. Like, no matter when I start a project, that's not going to be finished until 5 minutes before it's due. And so because of that, like, I could think that, like, one day I'm going to build a company and the company's not going to, you know, I need to just be different in order for the company to succeed. We've got to make our courses in advance or whatever. And instead it was like, no, this is who I am. And if I got to figure out how this company can be successful with someone like me who can't finish something until it's absolutely necessary. And so that, like, dictated my model of writing a free report that, like, talked about an upcoming coaching program, then sold that coaching program, then delivered that coaching program. And then only when I was done delivering the coaching program did I have a product, because, you know, it's a lot different. Like, oh, I'm going to have module 1 done by Friday versus I'm going to have module 1 done by Friday because I've got a couple $1 million of people waiting for it. And if I don't have it done by Friday, I'm going to be screwed, right? So that external pressure was very necessary. So I'd say, like, one of the biggest things I teach people that, like, back from your time as well as even today, because for whatever reason it hasn't really been absorbed by the marketplace, is
and
the
there's
idea.
so many new people coming in.
Yeah, it's just the idea of, like, yeah, where's your weakness and how do you design a business so that that's irrelevant? Everyone kind of gets now that you should design a business around your strengths, but they don't realize that you also have to design the business around your weaknesses. And, you know, one of the biggest hints of that is that when I'm talking to any entrepreneur, that if they tell me, like, I feel like I'm disappointing my business, I'm not doing the job like I need to be doing, more often than not, it's because they didn't design the business right based on who they are. They tried to design the business based on who they thought an entrepreneur is, not them.
Yeah.
What is the name of that theory, real quick? Isn't there a theory called that? It's Italian, named after Italian, where the amount of
Pareto principle?
Pareto?
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Well, no, then there's another one. It's where the work given or the work that you have will expand.
Law.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, it will expand to the amount of time. If you give yourself an hour or you give yourself 5 days, it will get done in an hour. It will get done in 5 days. It's just that simple.
Yeah,
So-
I've never had the thing of finishing something 5 days early and be like, this is done.
Never.
Like, I just keep working on it. Like, I don't have the ability. Like, even when I showed you the manifesto, right? You're like, release it. I'm like, no, it's not ready.
There's
like,
actually been studies about that, right? That they give a group of people 2 days to do a very complex task, like 8 people in a room, and in 2 days they can get done what they gave a better job what they gave people 60 days to do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I do. Just as I don't. This is something I just kind of come up with. Is I will give myself a false deadline for something, and then what I've been doing over the last 8 or 9 years is I've been using gamification.
Right.
And so, like, I'll have a trip to the Keys, or I'll have something, and I'll say I'm only allowed to do that if I get it done on this date, and the date is always well before I think I can get it done. And for some reason, that kind of motivates me to say, I got that done. I can check that box. We're allowed to go to the Keys for 3 days.
I wish that worked for me. I'm more like Rich. It's like the true motivation is, shit, I'm on stage in 2 days.
Yeah.
I haven't even started my first slide.
I remember in Tampa the night before, you said, I haven't started my slide yet. I'm like, what?
Also, the difference is whenever you put a date to something, then it becomes a goal. Until then, it's an idea, right? So I want to build a car versus I want to build a car by Fridays, and that becomes a goal, right?
Yeah,
and that makes a huge difference in your dedication to the task.
I think for me, probably the most important thing, and I think it's the same way with you, Rich, is accountability trumps the date. Because if you know you have a coaching program, and you have 150 students starting on Monday, like, the slides got to be there. Or if you're at an event or you're speaking, you're on a webinar, like, that accountability. And so same thing with, like, walking and different types of things. It's like, I know back in the day, if I had a training partner or a coach that was coming, a fitness coach or a trainer coming to me,
You feel accountable.
Yeah.
The account, yeah, and even in eating, because, like, if he's going to be coming in tomorrow and putting me on a scale, that I'm like, oh man, he was pissed at me last week because I gained a pound, and so I think accountability. It's so easy to disappoint yourself.
Yeah.
in that sense.
Two thoughts that like about this. One, like what you said reminded me of a book. It's The Now Habit by Neil Fiore, and it's a book about procrastination. And his whole thing about procrastination was that people procrastinate because they look at their work and they look at that as like being the next thing for a long period of time. There's nothing to look forward to. So like, why start? Because like now you've got this long grind, right? So his counterintuitive idea was you build a schedule of just fun things to do. That's the only thing you put on your schedule. And you fit work in, but you have to have fun stuff on your schedule or like you have no incentive. So like the whole idea is that the only thing that goes on your schedule is fun stuff. Yeah. And then you try and work in like where you put the stuff. And there's some legitimacy to that. Maybe, you can take that to an extreme. And then on the
quite opposite of like eat that frog, right?
Yeah.
Just the opposite.
Yeah, just the opposite. And then I read this quote, and for me, I believe it's true, unfortunately, that perfectionism. This was the quote. Perfectionism is trying to get the world to believe something about you that you don't believe about you, right? Like so that like, and there's this underlying like, I think. But behind the surface for me, like I need to seem smart. I need to seem like I'm well read, right? Like all this kind of stuff. And for whatever reason, like that's important to me. Like that equates with how I do something is my value, not necessarily who I am. And so that drives that like until it's perfect, I don't want to put it out because it's a reflection of me, right? Like of my worth, which is not, right? Like it's not really the right way to look at it. And why, like, I think I've always found it a lot easier to grow every other business I've been in where I was not the product. Because when you're the product, right? Like now you have both sides of the brain, the right business decision and then the insecure creator that's like, well, wait a second, it's not ready. Like it could be better.
Yeah. So I want to shift now to what you're focusing on now, and that's scaling. And you've been over at my place a couple of times. We've whiteboarded. I'm really excited about what you have to, to be talking about in the future. And in the next 45 minutes here, I want to try to condense some of the big points. So first off, you were talking about the journey and the distinction between a hustler and an entrepreneur. Talk about that.
A hustler all the way to a founder.
To a hustler to founder. No, hustler to founder.
Well, I mean, I think a hustler is really the best way to start to really talk about the beginning of a business because most businesses begin by the entrepreneur doing some kind of hustling. Like
I think even in our industry, I don't even know if it qualifies as a hustler yet. You let me know. It's kind of like
there's a dreamer before the hustler.
Yeah, right. There's the dreamer is I want to make money online. I don't know how, but I have to. I'm seeing everybody else do it, and then there are people that it's like, so what are you doing? I'm making about $20,000 a month. What are you doing? I bought a course on affiliate marketing, and I did a course on Shopify, and I've got a little bit of a list that I do some emails to, but they don't have any type of business. In fact, if you were to say to them, where are you going to be a year from now? They'd be like just hustling more.
That was me. That was me for 7 or 8 years in this business.
Yeah,
I made a lot of money.
Yeah,
but I realized at one point
that's a hustler.
As soon as I stopped, that's what I did. Right, for 6 or 7 years, I hustled. I sold traffic. I sold sneakers. I sold anything. And I realized, well, wait a minute. The minute I stop, it stops.
Yeah,
and that's not a business.
And how do you sell it? And like affiliate marketing is very attractive, and I think it's a great way to start for people because it's like, hey, flip the script. Don't worry about support and building the business and all that. Go conquer traffic. Somebody else already did all the work. They did all the offers. You could figure out how this works, and then what you realize is, okay, I'm getting only 50% of these efforts. You also don't have all the overhead and everything like that. But once you figure out the traffic, then it's like, okay, now I have a skill that probably one of the most important skills in growing a business is being able to understand the metrics of getting traffic, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that while affiliate is one way, it really is about like any easy way to kind of get your feet wet. Like back in the old days, right? Like creating like an ebook and a one-page website, right? Before the invention of blogs, before the invention of YouTube.
Or video.
I did that. And while I make no money from all those things I did back then, that's what taught me internet marketing. And I don't know that I would have felt comfortable doing everything else later on had I not like started with some basic stuff to be like, oh, I get it. This is how this works.
Yeah.
This is how that works. This is what this means, right? Like, so I'm not asking who's Earl, right? Like that's the famous, like, when you write URL and your customer saying who's Earl, you keep talking about this Earl guy. What am I going to need?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's, I would say, but you could be, as John was saying, like you can make a lot of money hustling if you're good at it. And I get the sense that you're good at it. And yeah, so that's another way that you remind me of my dad, because my dad was also a hustler. Made a lot of money, right? But like at the end of the day, it was always like deals, just deals.
Right.
And he had a business, but the business was really just so that he could do deals, right? Like the business support, like his infrastructure kind of was like a break-even business, but then the deal flow was how he made his money. But when he didn't work, there was no money, right? So he made some big scores, but he didn't, money wasn't working on his behalf.
Yeah.
That's key, because I did both ways. Like my previous line of work prior to internet marketing was a real business, 300 employees and the whole 9 yards and legal departments. And then when I went to internet marketing, I wanted none of that. Yeah, I didn't want any of that. So I was like, Mike, I'm sitting at home. And in fact, I remember the phone call from Mike. I'm sitting in my garage working. He's like, go get an office, drive 15 minutes to the work, and I did. And the first time I hated it, I'm like, nah, I want my toes in the pool, my kid nearby. But the truth is, I can do that while I'm hustling. And if I want to build a real business, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't build a real company online or offline sitting with your toes in the pool. It's nice to sound that way. And yes, you can build a hustle that way, but something real that lasts beyond you or beyond a medical emergency or beyond a vacation, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
And I think Matt, you can identify with this because, Matt's actually the backbone of the first product. Matt had the vision in the product, Groove Cart. At that time, it was called Ultra Fun
Shop, I think.
It was something else before that too.
Yeah.
And
Easy store.
Yeah. And so Matt already had a vision, and I think that's where you start going from hustler, and we call it infopreneur, passion project experts, and that's where basically to become a founder at a certain point you have to say, okay, I have to take some type of knowledge of something, of some passion and some expertise and an understanding of that marketplace, and at least come to the table and say, this is my vision, and I want to build a company from there.
Go ahead.
I think a great example of what you were saying earlier, it's easy to understand your strengths sometimes, but you don't realize your weakness, and building the business around your weakness. In my particular case, if there's one thing I knew I was struggling with was marketing. And hence that's how I met John, really seeking some help for marketing, and as well meeting Mike, right? Seeking help with marketing. I have an idea. I really didn't know how to bring it to market. So at least I was lucky enough to identify that about myself. Is I wasn't strong in marketing whatsoever.
I wonder, and I don't know if this is true, but because I'm just thinking the thought out loud. But maybe John, you would know. I get when I think of the times that I hustled in my life, they were much more opportunity driven. I saw a spot, I could get this here and I could sell it there for that much, right? Even when I was 13, Madison Square Garden, I used to go and get online for concerts 2 days or a day before they went on sale. And so I'd be standing at the very front of the line, and a lot of the people at the front of the line all were not buying the maximum tickets they could buy. And so me and a partner of mine, when I was 13 to 15, we would ask all the people around us, are you buying the maximum tickets? And if they said no, we're well, we'll buy your tickets for you if you'll buy the maximum. And so we'd end after we finished, we'd end with Rich 100.
Rich started StubHub.
Yeah, no, I know. We ended up with 100 front section seats, and then I'd sell them to a ticket broker and make our money. But that's an opportunity. I wasn't solving a problem. I think I wonder if it's true. Because like I said, I haven't thought about it. Opportunity, it's hustling is much more about spotting an opportunity and seizing it. Whereas a business is more about a prospect and a problem and solving it.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
I think John and Matt will agree with me on this. We have been those guys our entire life. What you just said about
I'm thinking of every little thing. I'm damn, he's right. Damn, he's right.
In a way, we have some very good traits of seeing opportunities and exploiting them, for lack of a better term. That while we were building this company, this company and the vision and the direction it was going had enough for just do this and you'll be all set. And it's very, very hard for us to we've gotten disciplined, and we've learned to start saying no to different things with extreme discipline. Because in the early days, for instance, you remember we were talking
opportunities.
We were talking to somebody about traffic, and he was like, "Hey, I've got this idea about basically
kids gaming site where the kids get ranked and they get hired by
I remember
basically
that.
like e-gaming sports
Right.
thing that he was building, and he was like, if you guys want to partner, and we started getting all excited.
which might work out.
Half hour in, we were like, I remember saying, we can't do this. And I remember Matt saying, no, but maybe
But
we
look
can.
how big the industry is, right?
And so, and that was like something that had nothing to do even with our brand. Right. And then when it comes to to our own brand,
that was opportunity seeking.
We have so much deal flow that comes to us that I'll give you an example. There may be somebody that is really good at live event workshops,
right,
and extremely good at delivering value.
Right.
So it might seem that we have people coming into Groove that are going to be paying somebody else for that.
Right.
That, hey, we should do that with that person, and then we go meet with them. And we start putting these things up. What we start realizing is it's not just a great idea that a business should have, and we should do that. It's the phone call. The pages have to get done. Right. We have to meet, and then all of these things start bleeding, and you start realizing we've bitten off maybe more than we can chew, and some of this stuff has to wait.
Yeah, and it's also like there's a diffusion of focus, right? And at the end of the day, and this is like, I would say that this is not probably something that we can cover on this podcast, but it's probably worth a conversation that we have like off air at some point. At the end.
Too bad, guys.
What?
Too bad.
No. It's just that. Well, there's something in like from Michael Porter, right? Michael Porter was a Harvard professor, Harvard Business School professor. He's probably the most well known as it relates to overall strategy, right? Like he put kind of competitive advantage. He kind of defined that term and strategy. And he's got a bunch of different models, like the 5 forces model and whatever, but that's not why I'm bringing him up. He also has this concept called activity mapping, right? And when you look at like the activity map, and this is what we could do off air at some time, but an activity map like is the core activities of the business that allow it to execute its strategy in a way where others will find it very difficult to compete. So when you look at like Southwest Airlines, for example, right? When you look at their activity map like has like, the core elements like, low prices, et cetera, right? But then what allows them to do that are like 20 other activities, right? And all those activities are interconnected. And the more activities that are interconnected that create your like competitive like advantage, the more difficult it would be for anyone else to copy it, right? And so at the end of the day, like to build Groove out, you want to be known for something, whatever that specific thing is. Like you're the company that whatever. And then whatever that is, right? Like then your business model needs to be kind of aligned so that you're able to do something as it relates to that other people would have to sacrifice some part of their business in order to do that. Like the big airlines tried to compete with Southwest, but they couldn't because like at the end of the day, they'd have to make the union separate. They'd have to make everything separate, right?
Southwest went to all the suburbs
right.
Originally. So like if there was, Ronald Reagan Airport, they went to Bewey, right? Like they went to Long Island, which is a really big market. And they took the small Islip Airport and they built a huge hub instead of attacking JFK and LaGuardia. So they ended up going into all of the suburbs, Chicago Midway instead of O'Hare and all. And so again, like some of these things, you can't just say, oh, well, we'll just attack the suburbs. And that was just one thing that was integrated.
Yeah, I mean the whole point of having a strategy in general is that you're like is what you're going to say no to. Like that's the whole point of having a strategy is that there are many more things that you have to say no to than you say yes to, right? And so what are those few things, right? And I think some guy just wrote a book. I forget the guy's name. I haven't read it, but I love the title. It's hell yes or hell no, right? Like life, like, your business should be like, it's either a hell yes, and if it's not a hell yes, then it's a definite no.
The book title here will research.
Somebody used to say that to me all the time. Matt Basak, that's one of his favorite sayings.
Yeah,
because it's not a hell yes, then it's hell no.
Yeah, and so
I thought he came up with that.
No, like it's famous. I didn't come up with it either. But it's a famous saying, and I agree with that. And so, like when you're building out the company, and that's why I recommended that book to you this past weekend, Lean Enterprise, because they have something there that I hadn't seen before. that I think would be useful for you guys as it relates to what we're talking about here. And there's a metric called cost of delay, and cost
of the way.
No, cost of delay.
Of delay, okay.
As a way of prioritizing, like which projects need to happen sooner rather than later. And the cost of delay relates back to your value proposition and how much you're sacrificing in sales based on not having that element as part of your value proposition, as opposed to like, so it's very customer focused and customer getting focused as far as the delay of these like parts of this new application that we're going to roll out or new features we're going to roll out, like which one should come first, second, or third. It's based on, you know, which ones actually would help us sell better and acquire more customers at a lower cost per acquisition. And that becomes the driving metric. And then everything gets rated on a cost of delay, like so that you're delaying the least costly to delay
software,
as opposed to the expense.
I think I showed it to you once. The guys over at Funnelytics use it. So
Mikhail.
What's that?
Mikhail.
Yeah, Mikhail. Yeah. So I had a call with him, and we were talking about how we use this software called Canny for community driven feedback, and then how everything automatically hooks into Trello. And I was showing him this, and pretty impressed at like what we're doing. And he showed me this software, and basically it's very, very similar. But what happens is, as soon as something comes in, whether it's a bug or it's a feature request or a big idea from the user, from us, 6 months away, whatever the case is, you go in and you rate it on like 8 different things. What is the cost? What is the number of developers? What does this mean to the user? Will it help us make more sales? And all of these things like create a
matrix.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have this XY chart, and then basically what happens is you want everything up in the top left. Yeah, you want to have I'll just do it here. You want everything up in the top left, right?
Use my hand.
Yeah, I don't need the board. You want everything in the top left because that means we get it to the market sooner. It costs the least amount of developers. It's gonna make the users happier. It's gonna make us more money. And then there's other things where you're like, hey, whatever happened with that idea that I came up with? Thing is like, we need 3 developers for that. It's going to take 6 months to do. Nobody's asking for it. And if we put a bullet point on our page that we're doing that, it's not going to get us any more sales at the front end. And so it's unfortunately, some of those things may never get done because it's kind of like
Pareto theory. That's exactly what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That's what Pareto is.
Well,
least amount of work for the most result.
Yeah,
what is that thing with urgent,
differently.
important, and
that's the 4 quadrants.
Yeah. So it's kind of like one of those things you only want to be working in that one quadrant, and until any of those other items make it there, they'll get done in 3 years if there's nothing else to get done.
Yeah, and like that's a different way of working than what I'm talking about. But I've done that as well. The cost of delay is a little more complex. I can't describe it.
But it's more about opportunity.
Yeah. But it's more tied into your value proposition as opposed to these other elements. But like when I first launched Strategic Profits, I remember me and my assistant Dan, or my right-hand guy, really, not my assistant. He didn't carry my bags and shit. We were trying to figure out like what to do, right? Like when I had this 11-week period that was coming up. I wasn't gonna be making any money like when I wrote the manifesto. And so we put up on the wall like 5 or 6 different projects that we were considering. And then we created like a grid and we ranked each one. Like, let's say we had 5. 5 would be the best, 1 would be the worst. So that this way we could add them up and see which score. And then was there anything that was worth double? And we looked at like certainty of bringing in money, like, that it was going to bring in some money, right? Like, time, amount of effort till money comes in, right? Like 6 different elements that we were looking at. And one of them, I remember we weighted double. So we times that by 2. And then like the coaching program became the answer that we chose, but it was because like, okay, there's all this criteria and we don't know how to make the best decision. The other thing though, I just want to circle back to something you said earlier, because I got this tip years ago from Telman Knutson, another guy I coached a long time ago, that I always stuck with me because I have ADD and it was an ADD suggestion. He said to me, like I was talking to him and at this point he was just starting his ADD business because he was an internet guru, then he was an ADD thing, and he's done a bunch of things. And
he has ADD.
Yeah. And I asked him like, well, what do you teach people? Like for the ADD stuff, right? I have Add. I'm interested, right? And he's like, I'll give you an example. You know how you want to jump?
I'll give you an example. Oh wait. Well,
Sorry. Now you're
Let me show you this instead.
This joke's too easy.
Brad. Whenever you say something like that, I think of Brad Fallon.
Shout out to Brad.
Yeah. Squirrel. Now I'm gonna forget what I was talking about. ADD. So Telman said, you know how you want to jump from project to project, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I like doing, right? And he's like, well, you can leverage that in ADD if you just take your projects and then break them out into lots of sub-projects. Then you can jump from sub-project to sub-project, but you're still advancing the same project.
That's
right?
a good idea.
Yeah, and I was like, that's, and so it's kind of the same thing, I think, with not always, but in development and stuff like that. Can you break it up into smaller chunks and then get stuff like validated, not validated, like, are certain ones more interesting and more compelling to your users, like those kinds of things. And I think there's always going to be so many more things that you could do than you can do, and making those choices really determines the direction of the company. So it's not something to be taken lightly.
Side note, just to let you know, Word Manifesto or manifestoword.com for anything since you wrote that is gone. Okay. Like I tried like ecom manifesto and selling shirts manifesto, it's all gone. So you kind of cornered that. Once somebody went out and must have done every single manifesto there was, and like, Rich had some success with Internet Manifesto, and that was the secret thing. That was it.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I was reading a book by Ayn Rand, and she wrote a book on how to write fiction. Or no, how to write nonfiction, sorry. And somewhere in that like 120-page book on writing, it was an essay is to try and convince people, a manifesto is to try and inspire action. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to use that word. Like, that was like, that's where it came from. And then because it worked so well, then I wanted to come up with other names of documents that sound important. So that's why there was the attention age doctrine. Right? So there was manifesto, there's doctrine, that kind of stuff.
What's the one that you had like hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube? You had a video that just took off.
Yeah, well, I have. Yeah, so the video that I've gotten the very most amount of traffic views, no longer around. Because, well, I think it might be on YouTube. I'm not sure, but it was on Google Video, right? Like, and it made the top 100. Yeah. A 90-minute video on business was in the top 100 of videos, like online, which is kind of crazy. Nice. Yeah. But that was my presentation that I did at Big Seminar. So it was the U diagram and all that. But so what's interesting though, and I like with the coaching, but I think it applies to everything I've done, is that like to walk someone through this is like, okay, I thought about being a coach, right? Then I actually coached a few of my friends and I enjoyed it. Then I decided like, okay, this is good. I want to do a coaching program. So what's like the minimum viable thing there? Well, I'm not going to create the program first, but I want to figure out a way to sell it, right? And so I had a presentation that I had done like the year before with Abraham, and that was well received. So I did that presentation.
Jay Abraham.
Yeah, Jay Abraham. And I then did it by application only, right? And the reason I did it by application only was because I was afraid there would be no table rush and I'd be embarrassed. So you had to apply. And so stay in your seat and just fill out the application. And I had 40 some
odd what's
people.
Funny is like it'll work so well and everybody was like, hey, how'd you come up with that?
Yeah. And like everything was like to be safe, right? And everyone thought otherwise. But
so strategic.
Yeah. So then I made a compelling offer, like we would call that like a mafia offer, like it's very hard to refuse. And that was like you'll double the amount you make, you'll cut your work hours in half, so like 4x your money per time,
I remember that.
Or you'll get your money back. And so that got more people to apply. Then I selected the few people that I felt I could deliver that on. Right. I selected 25 of the 40, whatever. And then I worked with them to create the product, right? And by delivering it and getting the result. And in the application, right, there was a question like, at what point in the presentation did you decide you needed to apply for this program? And 95% said the U diagram. So when it was time to promote the program,
we're going to put that U diagram on the screen right now while we're talking. It'll make sense.
When it was time to promote the program, like to write something, it was obvious to me what I was going to write because the U diagram is what everyone told me made them want to buy it. So that's why, like on the Internet Business Manifesto, the U diagram is the cover, and there's a whole section leading people to it. But so I've done that model like numerous times where I speak about something and get a gauge of whether like could I sell Like if there was a pitch coming, like would I be excited to get to the pitch or would I be nervous to get to the pitch? If I'd be nervous, then I don't have the right topic. If I would be excited based on what I'm getting from the audience, okay, I'm onto something, right? So that's
you
the first stage.
You even did that online at a point where you had people go all the way through a process. When they hit the add to cart button, it said, you basically said that, hey, we're
we used to dry test. Like when I went from like doing individual ebooks to coming to the realization that you had, John, because that's what happened to me. Like the reason I like wasted the first 2 years I was online is because I had to close my hypnosis centers after 9/11, and I had like payroll that was insane. I don't even remember the number, but every 2 weeks working my ass off to just make payroll and then watch the bank accounts go down by 6 figures and then have to do it again for 2 weeks was like a grind. And so when I got offline and went online, I was like, no employees, right? Like this is going to be great. It's just going to be about my marketing chops and, and then what happened was actually I had an 800 number in New York, 1-800 my results. And I got charged like $100 a month for it, and I gave it back. I didn't need it anymore, and 9X owned it. Like this is like 2002, right? And I'm getting charged $100 a month. I know it's going to take like 4 or 5 hours dealing with the phone company to have that stop, but I don't want to spend 4 or 5 hours. But I don't want to trade 4 or 5 hours for $100, but I will trade 4 or 5 hours for $100 a month for the rest of my life, right? And so I did it, and it was that call that then started this whole thing. Like, I'm doing this all wrong. This is insane. Like, I would have never done this in any other business. Like, sat there I would have told someone else to have sat on the phone for all that time.
Yeah, right. That was your thing. Why do I want to do it all?
This is going to make me no money.
Yeah,
absolutely no money.
Right,
and that's what would be my big accomplishment. For
I remember reading something, or maybe it was a video I watched of yours where you outlined that entire. I thought it really was a shifting change for me, where you said I created an irresistible offer that I wasn't positive I could almost deliver on until I had the right person. And then I went out and found the right person that I knew I could deliver those results on. And then like how you selected Mike in one of those things. You're like, okay, this guy's got a list. He's got chops. He's got this. He's got that. I can deliver it. And if he didn't, you wouldn't have selected him as a client. Yeah. So I thought that was like brilliant. It was like, make this crazy offer that you know with the right person you could deliver on, and then weed through the people and then deliver on the offer. And then not only do you get to tell the world, look what I did, but you get to tell yourself, and your subconscious mind is like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah,
I'll do that shit again.
And I was, when I chose people like Mike. I chose people that were not like Mike. A few people that were just starting out. But it was really interesting, like who I rejected. Like I was so excited.
Well, it should be noted though that when I met Rich, it was January of 2005. So this was a year before Butterfly Marketing, and
I give him a lot of all the credit in the world. But so like if you're Gus D'Amato and you go to pick out a fighter, you got certain things to look at.
But that's what I'm saying. I just want the people listening to at that point that like Mike Filsaime came later. Like
I get it.
I was rejecting people.
I basically had carbon copy marketing and some ideas at that time.
I was rejecting people. I wasn't selecting people. Like I wasn't like Mike. Like I looked at Mike and I was like, oh, this is slam dunk. I was more like, there's no reason not to accept him, right? But I remember because I spent a year working for Arthur Andersen and Andersen Consulting, and then Andersen Consulting became Accenture. And a lot of what I knew about business came from the year that I spent there because I spent a lot of time in training. But Accenture, Andersen Consulting is now Accenture. There's one consulting company that is considered the best consulting company in the world, and that's McKinsey, right? And so even though I'm very proud to have worked for Arthur Andersen, I'd be more proud if I had worked for McKinsey. And so in the applications for that original group, there was a former McKinsey guy. And I was all excited. I'm like, holy, this is going to be like amazing, like coaching someone like this. I'm going to learn so much. Like it's going to be perfect. And this guy, like one of the other questions on the application was, what other programs have you purchased or signed up for during this event? And I followed it up when I spoke to them because anyone that I was unsure about, I spoke to, tell me what you bought at the event because that would be a gauge for me of how they see the world and like what kind of promises seem appealing to them and stuff like that.
He bought everything.
And no, he bought this. I don't want to say the guy's name because I like the guy who sold it. So he's going to just
You'll tell us later.
Yeah, I'll tell you later. Mr. X, we'll call him.
Okay.
And Mr. X was going to build you AdSense websites that he guaranteed would make you $1,000 a month. And he was going to charge you $10,000 for it. And, you know, if
Sometimes
you know,
I scratch my head
Yeah.
in an offer,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, well, go ahead.
yeah. So like, and if you know how like selling from the stage works, half the money goes to the person whose event it is. So this guy now is selling, Mr. X is selling for $5,000, as many as you want, AdSense, you know, for $5,000, AdSense sites that will generate $1,000 a month. So, you know, if you could do that
Why not keep them all
for
yourself?
yourself, right? Like, so like that was my question to him. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure whether you know how promoters work with speakers. So let me explain that. So now that you know that this guy is getting paid $5,000 and he's promising you he's going to make you websites that make $1,000 a month, and you're not needed for that website at all. Like he's literally just going to transfer title and then you're going to get the $1,000 a month.
So it's scalable.
Right? Like, you know, why would someone do that? Like, you know, why, like, tell me why. And he thought like he was still looking for like that opportunity seeking, like he wants to go through this is a Brian Tracy phrase, go through the revolving door of life on someone else's push, right? Like, you know, like not have to do any of the work, just kind of stand there while someone else does all the pushing.
Yeah.
And life doesn't work that way and success doesn't happen that way.
Right.
And I don't want to work with someone who thinks that that's even possible because it scares me that like if you think that like you're going to find money gold on the street and then you're going to be hanging out on the street and not listening to me trying to get shit done, you know. So it was interesting.
So you rejected him.
I rejected him.
Bravo.
So, and then his name is Jeff Bezos, and I guess
And he's been successful. So the way the way I think my growth over the years for me, and again, you know, working with you, pointing me in the right direction, came from the first thing I had to let go of is if you want something done right, it has to be done yourself, and that's always going to be the truth in the first 30 days when you're working with anybody. After building a team, when you start really getting to the point of well, shit, I don't want to write the squeeze page. The one you did, like, out converts mine every single time. Even though I'm a good copywriter, all these, I've got to go into a special zone to do that. So what I've really loved about building a company with these guys is what we try to do is basically just delegate everything. Like if we can come up with the ideas, delegate everything, have a team that can get it done until they push back, then our job is to just, well, you know, the sausage machine hasn't broken up yet. Just keep putting more meat in there until it starts backing up. And being able to get rid of pretty much everything, hopefully to the point where we're just, you know, visionaries and doing podcasts and stuff. Right now, some of the constraints for me is maybe was writing some of the VSLs and getting on camera and stuff like that. But as even that's starting to get minimized, and we have people in our video department that could write scripts and do voiceovers and all these different things. That's, to me, is the ultimate dream. And we were talking about it the other day. I was talking to KJ about the difference between being a time teller and a clockmaker. A time teller is that unique gift. Hey, come up to me any time of the day, ask me what time it is, and I can just tell you within 3 minutes what time. Oh, that's such a unique gift. That unique gift is exactly. You know, oh, you can see the clock now. Anyway, we'll tell that joke another time. But yeah, if you build your business around you being the time teller, right? Then you have this unique gift that you're not going to be able to sell the company. You're not going to be able to transfer that. Like, you need an apprentice that needs years to follow what you're doing. Your real goal is to be Henry Ford. You're a clockmaker. At the end of the day, people just want to know what time it is. And if you can make a complete system that can just run without you, and you're putting out many of those things. So I think that's ultimately what I try to do every single day is just say, who can do that? Who can do that? Who can? And what's ever left is for me. And then we've got to figure out a way how to get the team to be able to do that for us without our egos getting in the way.
Yeah, ego is certainly one of them, and so that specifically is an ego thing. But there are these there are these kind of things that I don't know how to phrase it, except that like they are excuses that we come up with answers quickly for, that when we really think it through, they're bullshit. So like what you're talking about is what is often called like the freelancer's paradox. And the freelancer paradox is like, like I'm not making this up, like it's something that I've like read about, heard people talk about, is that if you ask a freelancer, like, you know, to hire someone to do something, right? They'll be like, oh no, I can't do it. Like I have to do it, right? But then if you ask in a separate conversation, that freelancer, are you the best in the world at this? Or have you ever seen someone else do work that even you look at and you're like, wow, I hope to be that good one day. And most freelancers are like, you know, no, there are people like this person and this person that like I look at and they are at such a high level. All right, so you need to do this, but there are people better than you. Like describe like where the conflict is there now, because it means you don't have to do it. Now, there might be a different excuse, like to get someone to do it as well as me, I'd have to pay a lot of money or whatever, but that's a different excuse that then you can open up, right?
It takes too much time. I still have to train them how I really want it. I hear it all the time.
But what often happens is that we tell ourselves a singular lie, right? Like that easily gets us off the hook, that when it gets challenged, it's like you're selling a course, right? And the person says, I can't afford it. I don't have the money, right? And is that really the excuse? Like, okay, so what if I wasn't selling you a course for $2,000? What if I had $100,000 in cash here? And I said, if you can produce $2,000 by tomorrow, I will give you the $100,000 in cash. Could you get the $2,000? Yeah, I could get the $2,000. Okay, so then it's not money, right? Like now, I'm not trying to, like, I'm not saying you should buy my product. I'm saying that
you've gotten them to agree with that extreme metaphor there, that if you truly believed this was going to get you $100,000, you'd be able to come up with that $2,000.
Right. So the challenge is not money. The challenge is certainty. And maybe my program is not going to give you that certainty, right? But at least understand what it is you're really looking for. You're not looking for just a cheap product. You're looking for a product that's going to give you certainty. And so you shouldn't even be analyzing price point as much as like how certain, because that's your driver.
I can't believe how much I'm getting out of this podcast. I mean,
my point being though is that we often lie to ourselves consistently. We all do it to get ourselves off the hook at a high level. Right. And when we start to dissect that thought, it's a crock of shit that just like let us off the hook.
Yeah, I just love that, and like thinking out loud, like we're in a green room right now talking, like, and folks, feel free to use this because we will. So what Rich just did was just a brilliant analogy that should be done on stage and should be done on a webinar. So the first thing you need to do is get to somebody to say, how certain, after you seeing this program, do you think that if it was free, you could have those results? Put a 1 in the chat. Put from a number 1 to 100. Put 100 in a chat if you are 100% certain. If you had this program, it would get it to you. So first, get
that small commitment.
Get that small commitment, the level of certainty.
Right, because it's never the money, right?
At that point,
Mike always figures out evil ways to leverage
if you
what
say
I'm saying.
Evil, I'm teaching here. It's for you guys. I will never use it on a webinar.
You just described me. When you said that, I was thinking to myself, how many things have I not bought, not because it was the money, but because it was the risk of the money because I wasn't certain in the outcome.
Right.
If you had already convinced me of the outcome, there's really no risk.
The other thing is not only the certainty of the outcome, it's the certainty of your willingness to show up for the 8 modules and do the work as well. So
that's right.
That's a more valid argument, right? Is I'm buying something, am I going to use it? Right.
A quick story, like I value Mike's perspective greatly, like his marketing perspective. You know, especially just he's been there, done that, and I feel like oftentimes he's got a better finger on the pulse of the market than I ever have, and. I wanted to create this, what was my second coaching program that I ever did, because the scale one will be my third. I wanted to teach theory of constraints because I was certain how powerful it was and how big of a difference it could make for my clients. And so I wanted to teach a course on that, and I wanted to learn it better. And I find that the easiest way for me to learn it better would be to teach it, because now I'm on the line. And so I came to Mike, and I'm all excited about it. I'm like showing him what I'm going to teach and how great this course is going to be. And he's like, so how long is this course? And I'm like, it's a year-long course. And he's like, whoa. Nobody wants to take a year to learn anything. You got to figure out how to make it shorter. I'm like, this is really complicated stuff. Like, you know, it's like teaching algebra. It's all cumulative. He's like, oh, well, you're not going to sell very much if you don't. And so
people want 8-week results. Maybe 12.
So I made it a 30-day program, right? And I sold it really well. And like I did for every other program, I lock people out of all the content in a mean way, until they've answered like a 15-minute survey that answers every question that I've ever had on my mind about my customers. Like, what products have you bought that you were dissatisfied with? What products have you bought that, you think everyone should buy? Just every kind of question, right? And one question is, it was something along the lines, I don't remember the question exactly, but if you had to boil it all down, like, what's the single biggest reason you bought this program, right? And I'm hoping to say like the power of theory of constraints. I can say I want to say like 80%. 80% of the people said it was a 30-day program, and I know I could stick with it for 30 days. And that was the big so Mike,
validation, that big takeaway there. Yeah. So
Cool story.
I mean, when we talk about like what makes a good headline, right? It's the really good without the really bad.
Yeah.
In what period of time? So it like the best headline for losing weight, jokingly would be how to lose
100 pounds
how
in one
to
day.
lose 15 pounds in 7 days and keep it off without giving up without any exercise or giving up any of the foods that you like, right? That's the really, really good without the really bad with a fixed result. And essentially that should be a headline formula every single time, walking in, or a sub headline or a premise to any course, is that people want that result.
So 2 suggestions as it comes to that, right? Like, one is, and I've learned them from different people, you can't use them. I don't know if you can use them both together or apart, but so one is from Russell, right? Russell took a headline of mine and then added, say your headline again. What was it? Just
the really good without the really bad, or the
how to
$7.
How to lose 15 pounds in 7 days without any exercise or giving up any of the foods you really love.
So what Russell did to my headline was he made it more timely by talking about how people right now are doing this like in 7 days and how you can too, right? So it's like and maybe for me that was more important because I was out of the market for a while. This was a long time ago, but it made it much more like this is happening right now, like right now. Right. And I found that I was like, oh, that's interesting. That headline is better when it's that. And then the other one I learned from Clayton. And this was like, I still remember this because I was just like, wow. Pluralizing verbs puts the onus on the product as opposed to the buyer.
Give me an example.
So how to boost your income. Just say boost your income.
Boosts.
Yeah. Boost your income means like there's work involved, right? But like boosts your income.
It does it for you.
It's subtle, right? Like pluralize verbs. And when you pluralize verbs, the onus is taken off the the buyer.
It's a done for you almost.
Yeah. Without saying it. And you're not really saying it. Like,
grows
profits.
Boost your income
means, instead of grow your profits.
Boost your income means you do this and you with your work will boost your income. Yeah. Boost your income.
It does it for you.
This boosts your income. Yeah. You can't. I can't boost my income. That's,
move towards your goal. Moves you towards your goal.
Yeah. We got about 10 minutes left. So you recommended a book to me with the word lean in it, and you wrote lean all over, and I said to you, hey, is that something like, guerrilla marketing, was invented by so-and-so or whatever the case, or is that, and you were like, no, that's actually a thing, and there's like hundreds of books and everybody's using lean. And you said it actually came from Toyota.
Yeah.
An acronym?
No, it's not an acronym.
No.
It's
so Toyota's production.
Talk about
You
it.
stream out the fat all the time.
Yeah. So
Toyota
talk
production
about lean and
well, so the way it's been
recommended
applied to, so as you mentioned, I'm working on this scale course, and part of the reason I'm working on it, and there are some really good scale courses out there. I don't want to take shots at anyone.
But you'll be the best.
Well, mine will be different. And that's because I think that in the scale course, first I thought there weren't any scale courses. I've since found that there are a few, and some of them are quite good. I've actually gone through them. But what these courses do is kind of assume that your business model is like dialed in. And that's an assumption that is more often wrong than right.
So they're just saying all you need is more gasoline. They don't realize that the wheels are going to start to wobble
it's
off.
all about so you have companies like Scaling Up, right? Like Vern Harnish, who has great material, but that's more about how to run the business. The cadence, the daily meetings, the monthly meetings, the vision, the strategy, right? That's all vital and it's all important. in my worldview of how business works, that's like step 2. That's not step 1. And same with like, I think the guy's name is Alex Schefren, like very similar to Schefren, right? Like, and I looked at his course, and his course is really good too, but it's also just about the scale side. And I spoke to 2 different media buyers last night. They just happen to be friends of mine, but like we were talking about other things. One is Jeremy Blossom from Strike Point, and the other one is Maxwell Finn from Unicorn. And I was talking about this scale thing, and I asked them this question. I was kind of surprised at what they both told me. I said, how many people come to you to scale their business and you send them away because they're not ready? And I was talking to Jeremy first, and Jeremy was like minimum 75%. 75% of the companies that come to us,
3 out of 4 don't even qualify because they're not ready.
They don't know their lifetime value. Their allowable cost per acquisition is too low because their conversion rates are not dialed in. They don't all these kinds of things. They might come with a bunch of money, but it's just going to be wasted. So we just turn them away. I was like, wow, and that hadn't occurred to me.
So you're saying I need to go serve those 75%.
Yeah. So, and Maxwell Finn said he's like at a low end at 75% that we turn away because they're just not ready to scale. And so what I'm working on, this scale course, is really like, we could say it's 5 phases, right? And then we can dive into any of the phases you want. But the first phase is really just getting your head right. Like, what is the game of business? And I think when you look at it the way that I will share it with people, they will get the excitement and the challenge of building a business that does these things as opposed to doing these things, right? Because that's the game. If you can shift your viewpoint, it's actually a much more fun game to like be the quarterback than it is to be like the nose guard or whatever. I don't know football that well, but like whatever. So that's the first thing, just getting your head right. But then the whole next stage is really what Silicon Valley has figured out, that for whatever reason hasn't
this is what
rolled
I think
down to internet marketing.
Yeah, I really think this is somewhere in your landing page, in your heading, in the hook, the frame. All of this stuff is going to come down from what you just said. It's what Silicon Valley knows about scaling that you don't.
Yeah.
And they have a system, a formula, VCs, and you were even telling me, well, once you get started with a VC, the VCs, these are the things that they force you to do. And
if you're in an incubator, you're going to do what's called the lean canvas. That's going to surface all the assumptions that you're making in your business model. And then the idea is that you're going to validate or invalidate those assumptions as quickly as possible. And that a startup is not designed to make money. It's designed to validate whether the business model holds true before you scale it. And so the purpose of the initial stage is to actually just determine, is this business model worthy of scaling, right? And so, Silicon Valley has nailed that. And maybe I'm fortunate, like I've had Silicon Valley clients.
And that's why you can't be married to that vision. That's why sometimes a founder that is married to the vision, like the guys, I've read the stories about like Twitter, like these companies started a different way. Somebody would do a side project and try this, think the company is going to go a certain way, and they start realizing customers actually want this more than this, and they were ready to adapt to find out what we had something that the world likes. We're trying to prove a concept, but they're pushing against us a little bit. Somebody's phone is
that mine? It's probably mine going out over there.
We'll find it,
and it's Kim being
and so you that founder that's a little bit too stubborn about what they want their vision to be, right? That's the tough part, right?
But the important point there is that, so let's just talk about business in general. I think most people, I'll do this fast because I don't want to spend too much time on it, but that most people get that like most businesses fail, like, depending on who you listen to, 50%, 80%, whatever. But then the businesses that succeed, the overwhelming majority, and I don't know what the number is, could be 70%, 80%, 90%, probably even higher than 90%, that don't fail, don't get to the top either. They get stuck in this no man's land. And the reason people get stuck in no man's land is that their business model doesn't support getting to the top. So they built a business that's really like a prison that gives them some profit, but it will never be the business that can actually get to the next level. And that's all determined by your business model. And what a lot of people don't get is that, and I would imagine most people who will listen to this podcast don't get, is that marketing, while a high leverage activity, is not the highest leverage activity. And most people in our space think marketing is the highest.
We call ourselves internet marketers.
Right. Really, the business model is the highest leverage point in a business. Then comes marketing. And so the model is critical. And so your goal is to recognize that since pretty much like 90 some odd % of the companies that do make it to the top all change their model, so that you recognize that plan A is not the plan. Plan A is just the plan to get started
all the time,
and that it's never about the idea. It's about how often you iterate. Because if you think that you starting with a wonderful idea, you're deluded. It's like the people that get on a coaching call and are afraid to share their idea. The idea is like never the thing. Like, and if you think it is, then you just
they hire you as a coach, and the first thing they do is want you to sign an NDA.
Yes,
and like I'm not your coach.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's like the idea is never the thing, and it's more about how quickly can you iterate. And if people really got that, then they'd recognize, I think they'd have a lot more confidence moving forward in recognizing that this plan that they're getting started with is just an assumption. And it's more often than not, it's wrong. And therefore you're trying to figure out what's right. And so that's called the lean canvas, and walking people through that and surfacing assumptions, and then getting in a cadence where you're validating or invalidating one critical element of your business model each week and reporting back. Like, this is, so it's very clear, like, what we have to get done to get this model locked down. So that's first and foremost. And so that's like stage 2 of this scale course, is the secrets that I learned working with Google and Microsoft and Yahoo and those companies. And then next is the business that now has a good model, is it designed to grow? And that's all the stuff that like Scale Up and like teaches, right? It's about systems and processes. It's about strategy. It's about how things are organized, right? At Agora is designed to be a hit factory, right?
And let's just talk about Agora just for a second. You've worked with them, you've consulted for them. You
have a $1 billion testimonial.
$1 billion testimonial, and you had offers with them as well. And I wasn't aware of how big they were. At
our high mark, 1.8 billion.
A $1.8 billion company, essentially an information, digital marketing, info publishing. Yeah. Like not doing. In fact, doing so well, doing some stuff, and then all of a sudden, like some of the stuff that you were like, hey, you should turn that sales letter, just have somebody read into an ugly video, the ugly sales letter. They did that, added 20-30% revenue to an offer.
300% across the board worldwide.
Yeah. Exactly. So they never claimed to be anything other than, as you just said, good at what they did, and they were a hit factory. But there's a lot to learn from a company or your knowledge of a company. That's
but like, for a company to be a hit factory,
annually,
how does it need to be designed? How do the products need to be designed so that offers can keep being cranked out? Like, that's part of the design process. So, for example, Agora's front end, and I've talked about this before, but not with you guys, but I think you guys know this already. Agora's front ends are all newsletters. And why are they all newsletters? They're all newsletters because, one, when someone buys a newsletter, it now starts a year-long relationship. They're going to be in the mail sending them a newsletter.
And it's ridiculously cheap. It's like $49 for the year.
It's $49 for the year. And also that's based on all the testing that's been done, that a $49 buyer will buy, like, back end's very expensive, and not any more so than a $99 buyer, but much more so than a $19 buyer. So $49 is the price. But newsletters, the way newsletters are sold, just like the way magazines are sold, is by premium. You can't sell people on what's going to be in the newsletter next month. You don't know, nor do you know like what's going to be in next month's Sports Illustrated. All you can do is add some premium to the thing so that you get it now. And so Agora designed their front end, right, to be all newsletters, because newsletters have this year-long relationship. They have a perceived value, but a price point that is inexpensive. And then they could have 20 different copywriters working on selling the same exact newsletter, all by figuring out which premium they're going to come up with. So the premium is the copywriter's responsibility, because the offer starts with the premium. Like, the headline's going to be about the premium.
They almost work backwards.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, by the way, you get the newsletter free when you get the premium. So this allows, like, the structure of the business is designed for offers to be created, right? Like, the whole system is designed that way. And so while scaling up and those companies are very good at the strategy and systems and stuff, they're not really great for strategies and systems as it relates to a company that sells by direct response, because direct response has different rules than just generalized marketing and generalized client base. And so you could say, like, stage 3 of this course is, like, once you've validated, like, through the Silicon Valley model, now, like, how do we amp this up from, like, what I've learned working with Agora, working with Boardroom, working with the biggest direct response companies on the planet? And that's more about design. How do we, because you could have a great business model, but if you don't execute it, if the business isn't designed to capitalize on it, it's not going to mean anything. If you design a great process that, like, with a bad business model, you're going to end up stuck. Like, you got to get all these right? And then the last, the last of the meat, because the three primaries are Silicon Valley, direct response, right? And then the last is scale and growth. And that's like, everything I've learned really working with guys like you, working with all these media buyers and stuff. How do you take an offer and then therefore also a business and really scale its growth? And, those are the actual specific things that once you've got the right systems in place and strategy and you've got the right business model, becomes much easier. It's like, how much easier is it to get traffic for an offer that's crushing it versus an offer that's, like your people are doing you a favor sending you traffic because they're not converting, right? If you get the other elements right, then it's right. And then the last stage is like, how do you keep it all? Yeah, because we had some conversations about that. I was telling
legal and corporate governance.
I was telling Mike a story.
All the ugly stuff that happens when you get big.
This has to be an anonymous story because, like,
listen to this
we
story.
all recognize. You would all recognize the name of this person.
This one's gonna kill you. Yeah.
So this gentleman has a 8-figure business. Has had an 8-figure business for a very long time. You've read his book. I will just say that. And he had a company that he owned with his wife. Well, he owned it. And his wife being, living in California, that's a 50-50 issue. And they hired a CEO and they gave the CEO 10%. And then 5 years later, divorce, and wife hooks up with the CEO. They have 55% of the company now, right? Because they only had 90% when they got divorced. He got 45, she got 45. And now the wife and the CEO
and they have 55,
run the company, kicked him out. The book sells today.
90%. He's the founder.
The book still sells today and drives customers for their business. I mean, he owns a piece of it, but like a business that he has no control over. And kind of funny. So like that last one is governance. And while it's not important,
you're not going to tell me the book.
I'll tell you off air. Okay. I don't want to do that to him on air. You'll be blown away. So those things are only important when they're important. And, and they're not important in the very beginning, because in the very beginning, you got nothing to protect. So to waste your time in the very beginning on these things is kind of irrelevant.
How could Steve Jobs get fired from Apple? That could have been prevented. All these.
Although he probably should have been. Well, he grew up and he realized what he was doing wrong and stuff like that. But you don't want to sign up for that learning experience.
Right, yeah. He got it all came back for him, luckily, in a perfect world.
Because he was a genius. Yeah. Most people.
So I want to end with.
But he's also very clear on how many things you have to say no to, so that when you say yes, you're all in. Yeah. Like, it's really famous. And this is where, like, just to tie back into the activity map thing for a second, like what I was talking about, that like at some point you guys should look at. So, when Steve Jobs got back into Apple, right, he cut everything. Right, there was like 500 products.
Yeah, I've seen that video
and he cut it down to 4.
He had to tell them.
Right, like we're only going to have 4 products. We're going to have a desktop for regular and pro, and we're going to have a laptop, regular and pro, or student and pro, like whatever. We're only doing these 4 products. Yeah. One of the things that they cut out were printers, right? Because Apple used to make printers. Printers are actually a very lucrative part of the overall computer supplies.
World of computers, yeah.
Right? So they're giving up a very profitable end, right? You can certainly make the case that in order to make a computer useful, you need a printer. So in their value proposition, a printer makes sense. But when you look at what gives them their competitive advantage, a closed environment, the printer does not provide nothing for that. Absolutely nothing. Whereas iTunes and stores and all these other elements do reinforce their closed system. Yeah. Right. So, and the other, that making those decisions become very vital, right? Like when you're clear about what is your competitive advantage, and then how do you build a business that competitive advantage is so intersected that if your competitor looked at it, they'd be like, I'm going to have to change my whole business to do that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's the key of that.
Yeah. And so that process, and I think, it was in that video that I showed you of a presentation I gave a decade ago, but the Apple Store, which is the most successful store that's ever been created.
And we'll get a link to that in the resources.
Sure. The Apple Store, which is the most successful store that's ever been created, as far as a retailer. It went to $1 billion in 3 years. The average mall store that is a Apple store does more business than a Best Buy, which is 20 times the size like not not sales per square foot, but just total volume. They'll
Right.
make more. The Apple Store was also the only store that's ever gone through the process that I'm talking about. That they built the store in a warehouse, and they kept deciding like, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? 3 days before they went and opened, the guy in charge of design who worked with Jobs said, we got it all wrong. We got to restart. And they did. But like, it's the only store that was ever prototyped and tested and prototyped and tested and refined and prototyped and tested. And it doesn't seem like that much of a surprise that it was also the most successful store that was ever created, because it was vetted beforehand and it was designed like once the model was perfected and all that.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up right here. We're gonna end it with this line: what you want to strive for, basically. Rich had said, which camera am I looking at? This one here, this one. Okay, this one. All right, cool. And basically, like the goal from going from hustler to founder is, how do you know when you're a founder? It's when you're walking around your own company and somebody goes, "Who's that?" And they go, "It's the founder, idiot."
Yeah.
that's when
you're that unnecessary that people don't know who you are.
You could walk around in jeans and the flip flop, and who's this guy over here? Just walked into the refrigerator, grabbed my lunch without asking. Oh, that's the founder, right? So that's the goal there. So all right, everybody, that wraps up this episode. And if you like, Rich, how can people learn more about you, to opt in, get on a waiting list? To hear about what you're doing?
You know what? There's no waiting list. There's no nothing at this point. But certainly they should go to two places. They should join our list at strategicprofits.com, and they should join our Facebook group, which is also called Strategic Profits.
Strategic Profits.
I gotta hit you up for more members.
I've sent some people there. Yeah, there you go. Search for it at Facebook as well for the group, and join. I'm a member in there as well. Yeah. All right, everybody. So if you like Rich, want to see him back again, maybe we can dive deeper into scaling again. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.